Big exciting news as several people come out and say that they think a second stimulus package will be done this week. The question is whether they're correct. Why do they think that? And what do I think? Finally, my opinion about the subject matter. Big exciting news as we start a Tuesday morning. The president's back in the White House. Nancy and Steve are still talking. But some think a deal is, again, that word, imminent. This is Mornings LALATE. Good morning, everybody. This is Mornings LALATE. Hope you're good and safe. The coffee's brewing, the toast is toasting. I'm here, you're here, your alpaca, your dog, and I had some new cats join me in yesterday's broadcast. Thank you for sending me the DMs to see your kitties and your dogs that are now joining our 4 hours of programming every day. Go to the Funniest channel, subscribe. Subscribe because we're now at 4 hours of incredible programming across the board. We're ranking #1, and I really appreciate this incredible community. Thank you for watching, and thank you for joining me this morning. Also, like this video. I have incredible breaking news, which I'll be detailing in this recording that your jaw may drop. So get ready if you haven't had the Botox yet. Let's get to the incredible details that are coming up in this recording. First, stimulus or no stimulus? A series of quotes came out in the last few hours by people that think that a stimulus deal is going to happen this week. This is a mixture of what I've taught you as direct comments, source comments, and third-party analysis. Next, my opinion of the situation. I'm going to give you my opinion based upon the twists and turns at the moment. And finally, a really interesting twist, virtual hearings. Remember the call to action of this channel on Purple Power last night for virtual hearings, virtual vote? Well, now the irony is kicking in as the Senate intends to do some things virtually, but not your stimulus package. So will this be the impetus to turn it around? Really exciting, great news. Let's get to the breaking details right now. The breaking details as we start the new morning on a Tuesday morning is a lot of people think that the stimulus package is going to get approved. And I got to tell you, of the vast majority of the quotes, most of them are a yes and not a no. This is quite ironic because currently, as you know, we have heard a lot of false promises for a while, and so we're skeptical. But for some reason, a lot of very educated people think it's going to happen. I'm going to go through the quotes, and I'm going to dissect for you which are direct quotes from people close to the negotiations or in the negotiations, which are source data. These are people that might be close to Pelosi and Mnuchin, and which are analysts, which are like Wall Street analysts and people that sometimes have a very good inside track, but are still analysts. And finally, opinion. Really important news. Let's get to it. First, the White House I'll first start with direct statements. White House. Can't be any more direct than that. White House spokesperson overnight gave a update that said negotiations are ongoing. The White House continues to reach out to Democrats in good faith to try and reach a deal on delivering relief to American workers. Wonderful. So the White House says they're still on board to get it done. The choice of words in that sentence is sort of troubling, though. It's relief for American workers. How about relief to people who don't have a job? I don't know who wrote that press statement. So, children going hungry. I guess they're not part of the press statement, at least there. Here we go now with Pelosi. Pelosi has literally changed her words by the hour. On Friday, she said that a deal is imminent. On Monday, she said a negative statement. She said there's significant disagreement in key areas, but we continue to work on the text to move quickly to facilitate an agreement. Okay, so she says there's still significant disagreements in key areas, which we already know because I've been reporting that to you. So that's an issue of surprise. She says we're continuing to work on that. That's good. And then she says working on the text. This is quite interesting because I've been reporting this for 2 days, that there's a real focus on maybe modifying the text to perhaps increase eligibility of people under stimulus relief, but not changing the amount of money. To move quickly to facilitate an agreement. Well, that's also really good words, because she's saying she wants to move to get it done right away, not soon, not later. Now, on Sunday, when she met with Face the Nation, an incredibly unable to discertain, unable to follow interview. I mean, it was just like, you know, it sounded like someone had a couple daiquiris before doing that interview. We're making progress, she said on Sunday, and we're trying to agree on what we need to do to crush the virus. Well, you know, that doesn't help millions of Americans who are unemployed. We're not crushing the virus. We need money to crush our bank account. People who need stimulus check, we're not focusing on crushing the virus. We're focusing on crushing our hand with some dollar bills in the hands. But that same day, she said, don't fire people. You know that relief is on the way. Now, I gotta say, when you're the Speaker of the House, and you're telling 6 airline executives who are very powerful and very rich and employ a lot of unions and employ a lot of employees, don't worry, stimulus relief is on the way. I mean, that's a big promise. So I got to tell you, of all the promises a person makes, that's a big promise. And I can't see that as being untrue. I just have to take it at face value and say, hey, she's probably telling the truth. Stimulus is on the way. And on the way does not mean January. It means, you know, very, very soon. So this is incredibly great news. Now, here comes source data. This is not people who are actually in the negotiations, but people who may be close to the negotiations but don't tell us why they know. Ted Lieu, who's a representative, he's a Democrat, he's from California, he's in Nancy's house, he's part of her caucus, he's part of the people who hates Trump and, you know, tweets about Trump every single minute of every single day, says none of the issues that Nancy and Steve are negotiating seem inextractable. And that he thinks, okay, you ready for this one? This one's a bombshell. I mean, remember that kid that used to say bombshell in all those videos when he launched them back on April 25th? Yeah. This is a bombshell coming at the 7-minute mark of this video. This is why you stay tuned to stay with me, because I have a lot of bombshells coming up in this one. He said Democrats would consider a deal, quote, somewhat less than $2.2 trillion, but not dramatically less. Okay. This is getting good. That's very, very positive. Not dramatically less is 1.5. Dramatically less is 1.6. Somewhat less is 2. I have always said that if these people can get to 2, we're done. I've said this just, you know, I said this since May. I have said that CARES Act 1 was $2 trillion. I said that the president back in May would agree to something between 1.5 and 2. That 2 is the upper edge, but the president would go to 2. I said I've been saying 2 for about 1,000 years, it feels like. I can check the grays in my hair, but Nancy's hair salon is not open to check it for me. I've said 2 as the magic number for a very long time. The question is whether Mnuchin will get to 2. Now let's go to the analysis. These are third-party analysis from persons who are not, you know, in the negotiations. They're not in Washington. They're on Wall Street. But generally, as I've been teaching you, Wall Street is generally right about stuff like this. They are betting upon the outcome, and the way Wall Street works is they trade based upon the future event. So they don't trade upon something after it happens. So they're trading upon what they think is going to happen, and that's why they hope they're correct, and they believe they're correct, because ultimately they do, then they make money on their stock trade. Andrew Stetter, senior fellow at the Century Foundation, says, I do think there has been some progress made, and it's now down to whether they'll get something all the way through. Even if it's this thing that passes, they will come back. Get ready for this great sentence. Come back to it in December or January. Oh boy, this is good stuff to start the Tuesday morning on. What does he mean? He means it can come back for another stimulus package. Absolutely. absolutely categorically would come back for another stimulus package in December or January. I said that all day yesterday. I said it in every single video. I said this cannot be a stimulus package that will carry us past even December. I don't even think this is a stimulus package that passes past November. We're going to need another stimulus package in December right away, because this is not going to cut it. And he says, even if this thing passes, they'll come back to it in December or January to do another round. I'm just, oh my goodness. Now let's continue. Michelle Evermore, Senior Policy Analyst at the National Employment Law Project, says, I think there's tremendous pressure on both sides to get something passed. That is an analysis, and it's also sort of a little opinion. I don't know if I agree. Stay tuned for my opinion coming up. Nobody wants to go home and campaign, we didn't give you anything. Well, thank you, Captain Obvious, but they are at the moment. We're 28 days from the re-election. We still have a massive gap in the labor market, and the job growth is growing slowly, says Heider Schnorris, Director of Policy at the Economic Policy Institute. Thank you, Captain Obvious. But here's Wall Street. Wall Street opened up slightly higher today. The Dow closed up 465 points yesterday on hope that stimulus package would reach, and today it opened up higher. Here's some more analysis. We need a stimulus. The bottom line is that there's a health crisis, and the health crisis is far from over, says a Chief Investment Officer, Chris Ailman, for Calstris. Pelosi's comments on Monday were less upbeat than Pelosi's comments made on Friday, says Moody's Analytics, which I absolutely agree. And this is an interesting quote. Listen to this quote. We were close to giving up on our assumption that lawmakers would agree on $1.5 trillion in a new stimulus bill. But for the time being, we will hold on to that assumption. This is quite interesting. This is from Moody's Analytics, who I quote all the time. Moody's Analytics says that we were giving up on hope for the stimulus package as of maybe last Thursday, but now we're not giving up hope, and we're thinking that maybe it's moving closer to 1.5. This is incredibly great news. Next, virtual hearing to get your vote done. What is my opinion of the situation? My opinion of the situation is the following. First, I've always said that 2 is a magic number, can be done. The deal can be done with 2. The question is whether these people, Mnuchin and Pelosi, can get to 2. That is really the major issue. My opinion of whether they will get to 2 is the following. Pelosi at the moment does not have to get to 2. She can stay where she wants if she wants to. Why? Because the polls now show Joe Biden's ahead of 14 percentage points. So if she feels that she's giving away something she doesn't want to give away, she really should not, she would not in her mindset do a deal, because ultimately she can get a deal hatched within a couple of weeks from now when the polls have taken their impact on the Republicans. That's her mindset. On the other side, Mnuchin's mindset is the following. You know, we don't want to look as Republicans going into the election as soft and giving away the kitchen sink. And that doesn't bode well for our party and our caucus. So Mnuchin may say, we're not going to go to 2-1 because that will look like we look weak and that we gave it all away to the Democrats. The Republicans are doing things like the justice nominee because they think that is what's exciting people going into the voting. And ultimately, I understand the mixed message that you might get from these two people. But I really do think at the moment, there's a lot of reasons for both of these sides to say no stimulus because it doesn't serve them well. Now, the reality check is if I was in the administration and I was in the president's ear, I would say, sir, you're behind 14 percentage points. You need to start doing major stuff right now. You cannot stay on the same path that you are on right now, or you're not going to be elected. It's as simple as that. So throwing stimulus in a way in which it looks like you got the stimulus is the way that you need to do it. And that would most likely be by executive order. If he does it by executive order, Nancy can't take credit for anything. It'll look like Nancy didn't help Americans and that Trump did. That's why executive orders make more sense. Next, let me get to virtual hearings, which is really quite fascinating. The real fascinating thing about virtual hearings is that the Senate is in recess. Mitch McConnell put the Senate in recess to October 19th, so no one can vote on any law that Steve and Nancy ultimately agree upon. Where are we procedurally? Well, we would need a Senate vote. It's as simple as that. And the great, shocking, and sort of contradictory news coming out this morning is that the judiciary hearings which are not confirmation votes, but hearings will be conducted electronically via Zoom. Now, what I want you to understand is that it's not a vote. Over the next few days, and starting on October 12th, I believe it is, about a week from now, Judge Barrett will start commencing her hearings, and her hearings will be by Zoom. Mitch McConnell said in a tweet last night, Judge Barrett's hearings will begin 1 week from today. Chairman Lindsey Graham, has all the tools to conduct a hybrid hearing, meaning part in person, part electronically, just like the 150 others the Senate has held this year. We will not stop working for the American people because Democrats are afraid they may lose a vote. Now, what's important to understand here is sort of a mixed message and sort of a contradiction. What I want to explain to you is the following. What's happening in 1 week is a hearing. It's not a vote, and it's different. A hearing in which, let's say Jerome Powell talks to Maxine Waters, as you've seen him on YouTube over the last few weeks. He's appearing remotely. That's just a hearing. It's not a vote. No one's voting on the future of Jerome Powell. Are you in or you out? I'm voting on you. They're not doing that. They're just chatting with him. A congressional hearing about Judge Barrett is, again, not a vote. That's not the vote on Judge Barrett. So those hearings can be conducted via Zoom. The issue, however, is the vote. The vote cannot be conducted by Zoom. For some reason, these nincompoops have never got around to changing their rules to allow remote voting as opposed to remote hearings. And so the Senate remains in recess. The president can order them back in session. The president won't order people back into session if there's a backlash because they say they should not be in session. And ironically, here's the quote. Chuck Schumer thinks that the Senate should not be in session for anything. So ironically, Chuck Schumer, who's the one who wants to blame the Republicans for not giving you stimulus, is now saying we should not have the Senate in session for anything, which means you can't have any stimulus. Thank you, Chuck. Tell Nancy you just said that. As we continue to learn of the additional colleagues in the Senate testing positive for COVID-19, it's increasingly clear that rushing Amy Coney Barrett's hearing forward in the midst of a COVID outbreak in the White House and Senate would turn into an illegitimate process in a reckless, dangerous one, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said last night. This is why people don't like politicians, because ultimately what Chuck Schumer says is Senate should not be in session. House should not be in session. Okay, Chuck, so how do we get our stimulus package approved? How do we get it approved? You just said Amy Coney Barrett should not be in session. Well, how do you get our stimulus package approved? Ultimately, what Steve and Nancy do, if they reach an agreement, that agreement would go to the Senate floor, and that Senate would then make modifications. Hopefully it's the same as what Steve and Nancy have agreed upon, and they would put it for a vote. Well, they can't put it for a vote because the Senate's in recess until October 19th, and Chuck just said, let's keep it in recess. Okay, well, how do we get this done? The way you would get it done is the president would order the Senate to get it back in session remotely. He can't order them to vote. He can order them back in session, but he can't order them to vote. And so they ultimately may refuse to show up to vote or Mitch may not call the vote because that's ultimately his determination. And finally, the president's best path is basically say, I order you by executive order to appear to vote remotely, and I modify the rules of the Senate for emergency purposes. The reason why this is an issue is because the Senate cannot change their rules to vote remotely unless they are in person changing the rules to appear remotely, which is sort of like, okay, should have taken care of this when we didn't have a problem. 2,400 comments from yesterday. Absolutely incredible questions and comments. Let me go over them right now. Joanne, due to the recent outbreak, it has led to a lot of unemployment, liquidity in the market right now, more than is advisable. Omar, can we get rid of Nancy, please? I'm the only one who don't like am I the only one who don't like this woman? I got that question a lot last night. Let me explain. You can't unelect Nancy Pelosi. The people who elect Nancy Pelosi are people in her little town section of San Francisco. So she's a representative for a district. Only the people in the district determine who is going to be the representative for that district. Now, what you can do is you can put pressure on your elected officials not to re-elect her as House representative. That's what you absolutely can do. Andrew Bremer, the only pressure the president has is executive order, and he refuses. Pat Jenkins, why would it be necessary to beg the government for relief when we're in the middle of a pandemic? Joanne, we need to vote Mitch McConnell out of office. Susan Moos, most of the country would be homeless and starving to death by the time they get to this done. Mike, the government doesn't give a crap. Michael Vermillion, as long as I had to wait to think I have $2,000 a month for both retroactive and reoccurring, the crisis is over. Tracy, it's been 7 months. What's going on here? Rhonda, they need to include Xanax antidepressants in the stimulus package. B. Marley, I'm really sick of our government. Pat Parker, good point, Elliot. Why riding around and doing nothing about the stimulus checks? Joe Paul, oh, she's referring to my comment. You know, if the president was so focused on your stimulus checks, why is he riding around? In that regard, I didn't talk about it in this video. I will talk about it next, is that there's an issue of whether he's of sound mind to do executive orders right now. Paul Giraffolino, the political club in Washington known as the Swamp, once in power, will only think of itself. Dawn Wixon, I'm an American. I love my country. I love the people, but we the people are hurting. We need help. Joyce, hey Nancy, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. Really quite interesting. You know, a few days ago, we launched a new series called 14. And 14 has been a massive hit. The number 14 was refers to the number of days the president promised he would be in self-isolation. Well, that's gone. So the title of the show sort of is no longer serves a purpose. It's not 14 because he's not going to be in isolation even 3 seconds. So starting today, debut of a new show in that same time slot, 28. It will refer to the next 28, the final 28 days until the election. And stay tuned for that. As always, go to the front of the channel, subscribe. Subscribe because we're doing really quite well. Yesterday's Morning's LA was our most watched video ever in its first 4 hours, so keep it up. Also like this video. Coming up next is 28, and it will be either at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time or 12 noon Pacific Standard Time. Probably 12 noon Pacific Standard Time. As always, stay informed, stay smiling, and stay with LA for more.